Hey guys, Luke Clausen here with Tacklewarehouse and telling you a little bit about Z-Man baits. I've been with Z-Man for quite a few years, used ElaZtech for a long time, and there's some little tricks to it. I'm going to teach you about rigging, scenting, storage, a lot of different things about the baits. Stay tuned. I've been with Z-Man for I don't know how many years now, and you know, Z-Man's came a long ways. It's kind of a cool thing to be a part of. When I first started with Z-Man, it was owned by Jonathan Zucker. His dad actually started it a long time ago with the ElaZtech plastic. They had just bought the chatterbait patent when I started, but a lot of the ElaZtech baits weren't as good as they could be, and really the chatterbait wasn't either. Things have came a long ways in these years. That we've came out with a lot of different baits that really suit the ElaZtech product well. You know, they really make that technique better, or that bait better in ElaZtech. And we came out with designs of different shapes and sizes and different baits that work really well with the product. It is a different beast than what we always knew of it as plastisol, but it has so many positive benefits that it really is cool to see that we've came out with baits that really amplify those. We've seen the chatterbait come from what it was originally to what it is now, a long ways, a lot of things, and things continue to get better. Z-Man's been awesome about working with us as pro staff, working on products, retailers like Tacklewarehouse with ideas, things to make products better. It's never settling for what's existing. There's always a better product out there, and Z-Man's always been striving for it. It's really been a neat process to see. When I'm rigging ElaZtech, there's some things I do that I feel like makes the bait perform, or the product perform, a lot better. One really important thing with ElaZtech is an upward point angle. So we see with ElaZtech, hence the name, very stretchy of course, but you want something that's going to drive up through the plastic. So upward point angle from your line tie, anything that's going to be more of an upward angle, it's going to drive through the plastic, not something that lays horizontal or parallel to the plastic on the top of it, such as an EWG style hook. Something that's going to drive up through there is going to hook the fish a lot better, and you avoid issues where you end up having the bait ball up on the hook. The hook point drives back into it. Some hooks I really like to use, a straight shank is probably my favorite, coming through the plastic. An offset worm hook. Something like this is an owner jungle hook. You can see we still have an upward point angle. It's not coming back towards the eye. Really important to drive through that plastic when you're trying to Texas rig the bait. Of course, that doesn't make a lot of difference if we're drop shotting it, nose hooking it, exposed hook. If we end up with a Z-Man shrooms head or something like that in it, not as important there. It's already something that the hook's exposed. But when you're Texas rigging it weedless, upward point angle. Another thing about hooks that really helps is some sort of keeper. Here, this is a jungle flipping hook here. It's got a little fluorocarbon keeper. Mustad grip pin is another one that holds well, or else something that has a very steep angle to the keeper here. So if we end up with an offset worm hook, we want something that's going to bend back to catch that ElaZtech and hold the top of that bait up well. It tends to want to slide down things that are very rounded, as do a lot of baits really, but something that's going to hold it well on there. Rigging the bait, we're going to come all the way through wherever you'd like it here, come through the bait, and what we want to do is pull the bait hook all the way through so we get past whatever our keeper is, so that keeper catches on the back side of it. So pull it all the way beyond it, it actually will retract and lock into place there where it's not going to move. And now a bait like this turbo craw here, I've had one bait you catch 20 or 30 fish on that will never come down with a bait with a keeper system like that. And ElaZtech has the ability to almost mend itself. It doesn't create a huge hole and tear like we see regular plastisols. So we can use one bait a lot as long as we have a really good keeper in the front of it. It's going to stay up there. This hook's going to drive through. All we do when you want to re-rig it after it driving through, just come back out and come back in again. And we're back in business again. Catch a lot of fish on one bait. But again, that upward point angle, very important. Some other good hooks out there. The cover shot by owner has a keeper. There's a lot of different hooks with keeper styles, as long as they're a straight shank, offset, again with that upward point angle. When we get into rigging on baits, whether they're a jig head or a chatterbait, this is an Evo here with a chatter spike. You know, one thing with a jig head or a bait like this, we're going to go ahead and rig it on. Generally, I'll lay the hook next to it to know where it's going to come out. I have a pretty good idea. I use this bait enough, I already kind of know. But we want to push it up. When we have these wire keepers like this, that are Y-shaped keepers that lay on the hook, we want to push the bait up to that. And the best way to get it over that is to actually pull the bait on. So I'm going to take and pull on the top, and you can snap the bait on there. You're going to pull it past where it should be, and it'll snap right over there and hold. So on a lot of jig heads, chatterbaits, things like that, that we have a really big barb or one of those metal wire keepers, a lot of times it's easier to get it on there straighter and get it up over it by pulling it on, but we're gonna go past where we think we want it to belong and let it retract onto that keeper, and it's gonna hold it on there for a long time. Those are really the rigging tips I have for the ElaZtech. It's really an awesome product, ton of durability if you use it the right way. When storing Z-Man plastics, I keep it pretty simple. I like to keep them in the original packaging, in a binder, sometimes just in Ziploc bags. Z-Man makes some cool binders. The bags are already pre-punched for. The packaging is designed to keep those baits straight in there. You see the clamshells here for the baits, or another tray like this. We just need to get the air out of the bag when you pull a bait out. Stop the baits from moving around in the bag so they don't get warped, bent, crooked, anything like that, which is really the same with any regular plastic or ElaZtech. Either way, that's a good solution to keep those baits straight. And again, I like to put them in a binder. If you feel the need to put them in a Plano box, you need to make sure there's no other plastics in there, any regular plastisols or no residue from plastisols being in there, because there is a chemical reaction that happens between ElaZtech and regular plastics, as a lot of people know and have found out. It'll just melt into a big blob. Really, one of the last things is keeping the baits out of direct heat. Really high temperatures in a box on the deck, something like that, they can get softer and tackier. It's not going to happen on your rod on the deck. It's not going to happen in a compartment. But if you want to set a bag of these out on your deck and it's 120 degrees, they're going to get softer and tackier when they get that warm. Really, that's the basics. Pretty easy to store, pretty easy to keep straight. Just keep them in the original packaging, throw them in a binder, throw them in the boat, you're good to go. Scenting Z-Man plastics is always an option to do yourself after the fact. You can put different scents on there. Everybody kind of has their favorite scent, but there's scents that work better than others. Currently, Z-Man has scented baits right now, and Tacklewarehouse has some exclusive scented baits that come pre-scented. But one thing about ElaZtech, it absorbs oil. So any oil-based scent, it'll actually absorb it. In fact, Z-Man has a jar in their office with a bait with vegetable oil that the bait is swollen up. It's absorbed so much of the oil. So any oil-based scent you can put on Z-Man, put it in the package, put it on before you use it. If you want it to last longer, I like to put it on the baits and store it, or else you always have the option of buying exclusive baits from Tacklewarehouse that are scented, or buying the current Z-Man scented options that already exist out there. A quick tip, if you ever have an issue with storage or have a bait that gets kinked because it's stored improperly, is you can always go and boil them. So ElaZtech has a higher boiling point than regular plastisol. You're going to want to hold it in a pan with boiling water, and it'll sit there and look like it's boiling. You think it's going to melt, all of a sudden, boing, it'll go straight. It's a different type of plastic, but the same cure works to straighten it. By boiling the product, we'll straighten those bent worms, swim baits, whatever you might have. You can do that to fix your ElaZtech. ElaZtech acts differently than regular plastisol in a lot of different ways. It's really just a different animal. Some of the really positive things about ElaZtech that make it better than plastisol in a lot of situations I'm going to go over here. First and foremost is the buoyancy. So obviously the no-brainer we think of is the buoyancy of a bait standing up on the bottom. So it's going to stand upright, your legs are going to be up here. But the buoyancy also has some other things that really help certain baits. One is the jerk shad, drop kickers. A lot of these drop shot baits, it keeps your bait very horizontal in the water, so you don't end up with a bait that's sinking down like this. Regular plastisol likes to sink. We end up with a tail down rather than something that is vertical or tail up, a lot more natural in the water. The other thing with the buoyancy, there's a lot of inherent action that comes along with buoyancy. When this bait hits the bottom, it's going to hit the bottom, your legs are going to move and be standing up. They're actually going to be sitting there moving for a little while because of the buoyancy. There's a residual action that comes with that. Of course, the durability, we all know ElaZtech, how durable it is, how many fish we can catch on it. One other thing with the ElaZtech baits and the buoyancy is how soft it is. We look at swim baits, we look at craws, a lot of these other baits, there's just an effortless movement out of the tail, slower speeds than we see out of most plastisols, you know, and we're gonna have the ability to see a bait on the fall sit there and just kick. Everything moves a lot easier through the buoyancy, the softness of the ElaZtech, and of course we end up with more natural presentations with stuff standing up off the bottom, horizontal presentations for drop shot baits, Nico rigs that want to stand up. You know, there's a lot of attributes of ElaZtech that'll help you catch more fish. Hey everyone, thanks for watching the video. Hopefully you learned a little something about ElaZtech plastics and Z-Band. Make sure to comment below if you have any questions, concerns, even how you like to rig your ElaZtech plastics. We'd love to hear about it. Check out all the Z-Man products at tacklewarehouse.com and catch some fish on ElaZtech this year.